Hi, fourth grade. We're going to continue our lessons in chapter 22. Today's lesson is coming from 22.2, Patterns for Solid Figures, which is found on page 570 of your textbook. Please open your textbooks and get your journals labeled. We have just one vocabulary word to write down today. It's the vocabulary word net, so you can write as I'm speaking to you. A net is a two-dimensional figure that can be folded to make a three-dimensional figure. So a net is two-dimensional. That means it's flat. It can't be picked up. It's just a drawing, but we can also use it as a pattern. When you fold along the lines on this pattern, if you continue folding, you should be able to make a three-dimensional figure. So we're going to be looking at three-dimensional figures today and drawing nets for those figures based on the faces. We'll also be looking at nets and trying to figure out what type of figure that would be. So this is an example coming from your textbook. A box of cereal. If you were to take that box of cereal, which is a rectangular prism, and you were to unfold all of the sides, so you were to cut it apart on one side and start splitting it apart face by face and laying it out, you would end up with a figure that looks like this. Now, if you have an empty box of cereal at home or an empty box of any kind, I definitely encourage you to try this at home, taking a part of the box and splitting it open and keep unfolding it until you get it all flat and two-dimensional again, and you should be able to see the outline of the net. So the net is made up of whatever faces the figure has. That's what shapes will be on the net. So for example, this box of cereal is made up of rectangles, and so each shape on the net is also a rectangle. We're going to be looking at a couple videos today in addition to this lesson. The reason why is it is a little bit challenging to explain this from a two-dimensional standpoint. So I have found a couple of helpful YouTube videos that have visual effects for you to see a 3D figure being unfolded. So I definitely encourage you to go and watch those before you start your independent work so that you get a better idea of this, because it's such a visual lesson. It would be helpful for you to have those visual aids as well. So however, we're going to get started taking notes, and I will do my best to explain this to you from a two-dimensional standpoint, even though it really helps to have that third dimension. So number 1 says, what shapes make up the net of a rectangular prism? So again, remember I told you whatever the faces of the solid figure has, those flat surfaces, that will be the same shapes that make up the net. So a rectangular prism is a rectangle. So what type of shapes would you see on the net? We would see rectangles. And thinking back to our lesson yesterday about how many faces those cubes and rectangular prisms have, you might need that chart that we wrote out yesterday of the faces, edges, and vertices nearby. A rectangular prism has 6 faces. Let's draw that out to show. Go ahead and draw a rectangle, and then 2 parallel lines coming back from the top of the corners. 1 parallel line connecting those corners that runs parallel to the top of our first rectangle. Then 1 parallel line down the right side, and 1 parallel line connecting to the top. So we can see from this perspective 3 sides, 1, 2, and 3. And if we were to split up this into the sides that we can't see, we would see 3 additional sides: the bottom, the left side, and the back. So altogether that's 6. So a rectangular prism is made up of 6 rectangles. All right, we're going to now look at these figures, and we're going to try to draw a net that could be cut to make the model of this figure. So number 2 is a cube. So remember, a cube is made of 6 faces that are all squares. So I want you to imagine right now like we are unfolding this cube that we see. So to get us started, let's draw a cube. So go ahead and draw a square. Then draw those parallel lines across the top. One parallel line connecting those, straight line down, another parallel line, and then draw the dotted lines to show those hidden parts. Now I want you to imagine that we're going to start with the base, the bottom part. So the bottom part is hidden right now. It's that dotted line part that we just drew in. We're going to start with the bottom. So I want you to draw a square, and that's going to be our base. So draw that square, and I want you to shade it in blue like I just did on the model. So this is our base. Now I want you to imagine from that base that we start to fold down the other parts of the cube. So let's begin by folding down the sides. The left side that we can't see on the original cube would come off here. Go ahead and draw a square. Then the right side would come down here. If we start to fold down the back side, we also have the top attached. So that would fold down into two squares. We would take the back side that we can't see would fold down, and connected to it is the top. That would fold down. And then we're just left with this front piece. I'll color over that for you. This front piece here is the only one that we haven't folded down yet. So then our front piece would be here. So that's one possibility. This is the most common net that you will see for a cube. It looks like a cross. It has two sides will be vertical on one side and then one on the other, and then it will have one side on each side of that straight line of squares. All right, let's take a look at number 3. Number 3 is a triangular prism. So its bases are triangles. So that means that it needs to have at least 2 triangles, and then the other sides are rectangles. So we'll be drawing 2 triangles and 3 rectangles, but we'll need to piece them all together just right so that it could be folded up again. So to get us started, let's go ahead and draw a triangular prism so we can imagine it being unsplit. So I want you to draw a triangle. We're going to call this our base. So we're going to shade in that triangle here. This is going to be our base that we're going to use. Then I want you to draw a straight line from the top and a parallel line from the bottom. Then draw a parallel line to the other side of that triangle. And now we're going to draw the sides we can't see. We're going to draw a dotted line down for the back of that triangle and a dotted line across. And then we're going to draw another dotted line connecting there. Okay, so let's get started with our first base, which is our blue triangle that we shaded in. So we're going to imagine that is being set down on the ground, unfolded from the sides of this figure. So I'm going to color this in blue so I remind myself that is my base, my starting point. And now I want you to imagine we folded that down. What's connected to it from this bottom part here, the bottom of the triangle, is a rectangle that's running across the bottom. This bottom portion here is connected to that base of the triangle. So I'm going to draw a rectangle that's connected to the bottom. And connected to that rectangle at its bottom is another base of a triangle. So we can draw another triangle, but it's going to be an upside down one. Okay, so we've unfolded now the 2 triangle pieces with the rectangle. Now we need to see where those other rectangles come into play. Well, looking at that black rectangle that I just colored in on our prism, I see that on one edge here is the edge of another rectangle. So I know that another rectangle will be on this side of that rectangular base. And on the other side, the side that we can't see, I see there's another long side here. On the other side, that leads to another rectangle. So there'll be another rectangle on the other side. So then I want you to imagine folding that all back up again, and we would end up with a triangular prism. It helps me to use different colors to see the sides. So if you have different colors, it might be helpful for you to draw that out. That is a good visual tool to be able to use and imagine these things. All right, number 4, we have a square pyramid. So there's a square at the base. So let's go ahead and draw that. To get us started, we're going to draw the part of that square. We'll draw a right angle that is tipped on its side. And from there, we'll draw a straight line up through it for part of the triangle for an edge of one of the faces. Then go ahead and draw a diagonal line down connecting to that base line and do the same thing on the other side. Now we need to draw in the sides that we don't see. So we're going to draw a dotted line down the back to show there's one more piece back there. And then another right angle coming from the corner to the other corner. Okay. All right, so first at our base, and I'm going to go ahead and shade this blue for our base, is a square. So let's draw a square for our base, and we'll shade it in blue to remind ourselves that that is our base, our starting point. Okay, so then I want you to imagine that the rest of the pyramid is just going to unfold. So we have for the square pyramid, because the base is a square, that means there has to be a triangle on every side of this square because it's the base. So we are going to have every side have a triangle. And I want you to imagine that you unhinged it and it just fell flat. That's about what it would look like. Okay, so looking at number 5 a little bit makes me realize that number 2 was not quite a cube. Number 2 is a little bit rectangular. When I first looked at it, it looked more cubish to me, but I can see number 5 now clearly that is a cube. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually change number 2 to be number 5, and then we're going to redo number 2 together. Number 2 is a rectangular prism, but it almost looks like a cube. So I'm going to get myself a new page here so that we can do this together, number 2. So number 2, go ahead and draw a very slight rectangle for the front side and draw lines going back, rectangle on the other side, and then dotted lines for the sides we can't see. So very similar to a cube is what this one will be, except there are sides that are rectangular. So if we look back at our original model, it appears to be that the top and the bottom are squares, but the other sides are rectangles. So the base here at the bottom is a square, and at the top is also a square. So we need to keep that in mind. I'm going to color the top black and the bottom blue. So let's start from that bottom blue base is a square. So we know that for sure. And I'm going to color that in blue to remind myself that that is the bottom piece. Then we're going to unfold it. I see from all 4 sides of that bottom square piece are rectangles. So I'm going to draw from each side. You see here is a rectangle, here is a rectangle, here is a rectangle, and on the other side is a rectangle as well. So my net needs to look the same. I need a rectangle coming off of each side of this square. So I'll draw that first. Now this is only going to leave us with 5 faces drawn so far, so we need to figure out where that top square is going to come from. So I want you to imagine we've unfolded that. We just have the top piece left. I see that that is connected for sure to this right side. So I can draw my last square on the right side of that rectangle as well. And that is going to be my top one. I'm going to shade it in black, and I realize that's a little more rectangular, so let me erase that and correct that. This is definitely a square. Okay, so very similar. Do you see how we have that cross-like feature, except this time we have 2 squares and 4 rectangular faces to match that figure? All right, we're going to continue some more practice on drawing nets that could be cut to make the model of each solid figure. So number 7 is very similar to the last one that we just did, except this time it is very, very rectangular. So we have a skinny rectangle on the front. Go ahead and draw that. And then we're going to draw the rest of the prism is made of rectangles. It does look like to me that the sides are shorter than the front. So, and the other pieces, so we're going to want to keep that in mind. So we have 2 sides that are a little bit shorter. So I'm going to shade in that base, that bottom base piece. I'm going to shade in blue. That's going to be our starting point for our net. So draw a long rectangle for our base and shade it in blue to show that that's our starting point, just like our solid figure. And then we're going to unfold it. So this time, let's let the back fall down first. I see on that back side that I have a long line with a rectangle. So I'm going to draw a rectangle to match to come on that back side. Then let's also imagine that with that back side comes the top. So this back side piece here also is connecting to the top. So I'm going to unfold again that top piece and lay it down there. Okay, so now that I've done that, I've done the bottom, the back, and the top. Let's fold down the front on the other side of this figure. And now we're just left with the 2 sides, which are going to fold down from our base. Our base right here has the 2 sides, and those are a little bit shorter, so we're going to make them shorter rectangles, almost square-like, to finish the net. So again, in that cross shape is the most common we see for rectangular prisms and cubes. Number 8 is a pyramid with a triangle at its base. So to draw this, let's start drawing the solid figure. Draw a triangle. And then we're going to draw, its base is a small triangle, so draw a dotted line inside. And then a dotted line down connecting there for the other piece. Let's shade in the base, which is that small triangle. That's going to be the base of our net as well. So go ahead and draw a triangle shaded in blue. We're going to start working on our net. Okay, so we need to imagine that the other faces are falling to the sides, unfolding at the edges. So I see for this triangle, this front base, I can see this edge holds our big triangle for the front. So this same edge on our net is going to fold out to that long triangle. I see the right side of the triangle also has a long triangle, so I'm going to fold the long triangle there too. Now, this part is the bottom of the triangle, so the top and pointed part is going to come out to the side. And then again on the other side, that edge that connects to our base is the bottom of the triangle. So I'll draw a nice tall triangle for the other side. All right, number 9. Number 9's net is going to have rectangles and triangles. This is a triangular prism because its base is a triangle. So we're going to begin to draw that as well. We're going to start off with a rectangle in the front we'll draw the solid figure first, and then draw a triangle. We're going to draw this a little bit crooked, so put a little dot slightly above the rectangle and put it over to the right from that left corner a little bit so that we have an angle to draw at. And then from the dot, draw the other to the other corner so that it looks like a triangle at the top. Kind of looks like a piece of cake, doesn't it? And then we'll draw a dotted line straight down from that dot and stop part way and draw a dotted line to one corner and a dotted line to the other corner. Okay, so we're going to have that bottom part be our base, so I'm going to fill it in blue. That triangle is our base that we're going to start with, so I'll draw that for the net as well and shade it in blue. And now let's imagine what else is happening. So I know that I'm going to need some rectangles and I'm going to need some triangles. So let's take a look at this base. So I see in the solid figure, this long line for the bottom of the triangle is connected to a rectangle. So I'm going to draw from this long line. I'm going to draw a rectangle coming out here because that's that front side that we can see. Then from the other side of the triangle, looking inside from that right side of it, I see it's connected to another rectangle. So on my net, that right side, I'm going to draw another rectangle coming off of it. Then from the left side, I see the left side has a rectangle. This one is a little bit shorter than the other two that I just drew. So from the left side of the triangle, I'm going to draw a shorter rectangle to match what I see on the solid figure. Now, the last piece that we haven't drawn is the top. I see on that left side, on the inside that I cannot see, the top edge is connected to that top triangle. So from this top edge on our net, we're going to draw that other triangle the best we can. All right, and there you have it. That is our net. We're going to skip number 10 for right now as well. Okay, so this would be a time where if you haven't watched that video on whether how to tell if a net is for a cube or not, this would be the perfect time to go visualize that with the video. So if you haven't watched that yet, I encourage you to stop this lesson now, go watch that video, and then come back to this part because it is a huge visual challenge, and that video would really help you be able to visualize things better. So for this section, we're going to talk about nets for cubes. So I told you the most traditional net for a cube looks like a cross, but there are other ways that you can do it as well. So we're going to visualize whether or not this could be folded to make a cube. Now, one thing that you need to look out for is that we need to be able to fold it without having to cut pieces off. It needs to be a continuous fold. Even if it starts at the bottom, rounds up to the side, then to the top, that's fine. But we can't have any pieces overlapping. So that's an important thing to look at. So looking at number 11, I see this net that is an L shape. Go ahead and sketch this out with me. We have two pieces coming vertically, and then the other one's coming horizontally. Now, if I were to make this my base, so I'm going to shade that in here, I could fold up this top piece. I'll use a different color so you can see which one I'm talking about. I could fold up this top piece to be a side, and I could fold up this piece to the left or to the right to be the other side, and then the next piece after it could be my top, and then this piece could be the side coming down on the other side. But then I'm left with this piece here. I need something to come on this front. And this piece is not going to do that. It's going to actually wrap underneath. So this net could not be used to make a cube. If we just had this one square off on the side here, then we would be able to make a cube. That was the only piece that was standing in the way. Number 12, let's sketch out this one. So we have 4 in a row horizontally with one coming up and one coming down. So let's draw that out the best we can. I'm going to start with here and this one. All right, so imagining here for a moment that this second square running across is our base. So that's going to be our bottom. Let's go through this. So this would become one side. So I'm going to write side 1. This would be side 2. This would be side 3. This would be the top. And then this would be side 4. So yes, this one checks out. That one does work. Let's take a look at number 13. All right, number 13, we have 4 squares in a row plus 2 coming off the side. So go ahead and sketch this out with me and let's see if this could work. So let's see here. Let's make this first square our base. So go ahead and shade in that first square on that strip. That'll be our base, our bottom. And let's take a look. So if I fold this up, this would be side 1. This would be side 2. This one here would be the top because it would fold over. This would be side 3 on, this would come over on the left, which would leave us with this piece here on the top. And this one would actually fold and overlap with side 1. So this one does not work. This net is no bueno for a cube. If this square was just on the other side here, then it would work okay. All right, let's take a look at number 14. So number 14 is probably one of the most challenging nets to visualize. When I was solving this, I actually had to draw it out for myself because it was just really, really hard to see in a two-dimensional way. So I definitely encourage you, if there's any of these that are challenging for you to visualize, draw it out on a piece of paper, cut it out, and see if it works. That is probably the most tangible way to get this to work for you and to make sense. So for this one, we're going to imagine in the second row that the second square is our base. So I'm going to color this in as our base. Now, like I said, this was one of the harder ones for me as well. So if you want to pause and draw it out to fold it with me, that might be a good idea for you to see. So if this is our base, I'm going to first fold up from the left side. This will be side 1. When I fold up that side, then what's going to happen is this top square is actually going to wrap around as the back side for side 2, which will then put this square that it's attached to on the top. Okay, so that first little set of 3, we have the left side, the back side, and the top. Then we can fold up this other bottom side, and this first one will be our front. So I'll write an F for front as well. Write an L for left, a B for back. Okay, and then this other side next to it will be the fourth side of the cube, which is going to be our right side. And there you have it. We have a cube made from there. So yes, number 14 checks out. Yes, and number 12. The other two did not work out for us. All right, let's continue a couple more and then we'll get you practicing on your own. So for numbers 15 through 17, we'll use the nets that are drawn out there for us and see if they can be built into the solid figures that they're asking about. So number 15 asks, which net can you use to make a triangular prism? So remember, a prism involves rectangles. So we're going to want to look for one that also has rectangles, but it's a triangular prism, so it needs to have triangles and rectangles. Well, out of A, B, and C, the only one that fits that is A. So A could be used to make a triangular prism. Then looking at number 16, identify the solid figure you can make with net B. With net B, I see it has a square and 4 triangles. I'm visualizing that faces of squares and triangles is a square pyramid. It would be very handy for you to have your notes from yesterday out in front of you. That would be how you could have the most success today. Number 17 asks, which net can you use to make a triangular pyramid? So a triangular pyramid has a triangle at its base. So we know that B was a square pyramid, so the last one would be C. It has a triangle at its base, and then the other sides are also triangles. All right, friends, so it's now your turn to do your assignment. We're working on 22.2 PW. We're solving all of it today. And I definitely encourage you to do this without this answer key in front of you. When you're finished with your work, then pull up the answer key to check that you've done it correctly. We have a math Zoom at 11 a.m. today, so make sure you log on with questions, and I hope to see you soon. Great work.